Hello, 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 and welcome to an episode of the Sovereign Society podcast I've been patient about. I've been saying that a lot lately, but Mimi and I met like over a year ago.
Yep.
Yeah, through our soul sister, Nixie. You may have remembered Nixie from a couple episodes ago. And we were both on her panel for her 100th episode. So shout out to the Queen, Nixie Marie of the I Am Goddess Collective podcast. We're all about collaboration and bringing that juju out there. So it's been really fun to see the evolution of our brands and our medicine since then. And I'm super pumped to bring Mimi on, because what I'm starting to do now is going to have a series before each season to talk about the big things to be aware of, so that we can go forth and really be aware, have that awareness, and to not have what the cosmos are or where they're at to be like, oh my God, but more like, yes, like, let me see what's coming and let me reclaim my sovereignty and step into that with the knowing, rather than feeling like a victim to certain transits or certain seasons. This is just a really big opportunity for you all to embrace this time and to use this knowledge to plan accordingly. So I appreciate you, Mimi, for being here and for sharing your truth and your wisdom.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited and love your energy. So I'm sure together we'll deliver some beautiful magic for your audience.
Yes, let's do it. Okay, so first, before we dive in, I want you to talk about what drove you into your passion for astrology and how you are seeing astrology be this tool that's really going to help business people and just the everyday folks to really navigate through this space.
Sure. Well, I think like a lot of people say, I didn't go find it. It found me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 9 when it found me.
Wow.
Because my dad took me to our local library and they were getting rid of a lot of old books. And my dad goes, oh, there are a few pennies and just pick up whatever books you want and we'll just take it home. And of all the boxes, I picked up 2 books. One was a book on the astronomy of the moon, and then the other book were about the 12 zodiac signs. And then I went home and I just read those books. They were probably way beyond me, but the astrology part really landed for me, because when I read it, I felt like I could understand people very easily. Hey, there's only 12 personalities. At 9 years old, we have such a simple mind. We don't overcomplicate things.
Right.
I'm like, wow, I can just understand all my friends with these 12 zodiac signs. And that's kind of where that took off for me, is that, we were immigrants, and my parents didn't have the money to send me off to summer camp like some of my friends stayed at home during the summer. So going to the library was my little refuge. That was my summer camp. So I would just spend the whole summer reading about astrology books. And I think I went and I checked out all of those zodiac books and learning about the sun signs. And then at some point I started buying books and learning about a little bit more advanced, like intermediate astrology. But at that point, my brain was way too fresh to even comprehend it. So I stopped, I just did my own kid thing. And then every time I would run into crisis moments in my life, I would always find myself back to astrology. And what I've discovered is that astrology was, for me, a framework to understand myself. And, fast forward into adulthood, I went through college, I went to law school, I worked a corporate job, and never was I ever thinking to be doing this professionally. But at some point I realized, if I consistently went back to astrology as the tool to understand myself, then there's value for me to offer it to other people. So that's kind of how it all shifted for me. And the value that I received, I felt it would be probably selfish for me to keep it. So, transitioning it and sharing it with other people was my way of doing my work.
Yeah, it's amazing. I tell everyone, I feel like astrology is the language of the future, because the more that we really understand this, it's a universal language. You know, it doesn't matter what your what accents or what language per se is. It's the language of the cosmos to me. So to really be able to work with the energy and to, like I said, to be able to be aware of it. I teach this a lot in my business programs on how to content plan, how to create. And I firmly believe that the more we can start to understand how these energies affect us or the influence that they have, we can then step into our power more.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of language, I actually learned, because I grew up in Montreal, so I learned astrology in French first.
Amazing.
And I had to learn it in English. And it is, you know, universal, because you can go anywhere around the world and a lot of people would have an understanding of, you know, the zodiac sign, you know, whatever level of knowledge they may have. And astrology is symbolic by nature. So it really speaks to our archetype, our own human psyche, to understand different parts of ourselves. And in some ways, that's what connects us as a collective, because we all share these different parts of our archetypes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And I think people are seeing more of that, you know, and there's a little more curiosity, like as we record this, we're in Mercury Retrograde. And I think the biggest thing that we really need to embrace, that it's not a bad thing. If anything, I'm very Mercurian. So I actually love this time of year, times of year, I should say, 3 times a year, because it's an opportunity for me to really reflect in all the re's and reassess, reevaluate, and really realign. And I think it's been kind of the problem in so much of like the media, of people who don't understand it, or there's more fear mongering around Mercury retrograde. I think the biggest thing we have to really embrace is that it's an opportunity for us to bring more awareness and discernment. And I think that's a huge gift of Mercury retrograde.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And from a business standpoint, not just life, but obviously all of it is an opportunity to, you know, because sometimes we move fast because that's what the society, like the demands are at work, and without be able to stop and slow down, I mean, it's going to be a train wreck.
Totally. And I think that's so much of the American culture. And that's where we have to be able to come back and reevaluate from that space, because is it actually supporting? Is it actually, you know, the way it should be? Or is this part of the conditioning we've had to really navigate through? And I think
and
that's
the ability for us to observe. Yeah, sorry, I think we kind of overlapped. Mercury retrograde stuff, we'll just kind of I think I was just saying, yes, you're right. It's the ability to observe and ask the questions, and in asking powerful questions is how we can live consciously, mindfully. And a lot of people wonder, well, what's the magic formula of living consciously? And part of it is be able to stop and ask the question, and not pretend that we just know it all and have all the answers at all times, because we don't. We learn as we go.
And I think that's another part that we have to really embrace, is that we're so hard on ourselves of like, and I think that's a lot of the times we're in, because we see social media and there's so much of that comparison paralysis. And I think the more we infuse more of that patience, I think that's what a lot of astrology can also share, is like, we're so go, go, go. We're such an instant gratification society now that we need to make sure that everything has its phases, just like the moon. And we need to remember that as we navigate through this time and space.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to dive in. Let's dive in and talk about some of the big things to be aware of coming into this spring autumn equinox. It's going to be pretty cool because I'm going to be in Bali during, here in this time. And so to experience fall when a time I would normally experience spring is going to be
Wow.
pretty interesting for me.
Oh, so it's actually fall out in Bali for you.
Uh-huh.
Whoa, okay. Um, yeah, I have you ever been down there
I've
during
been to Bali
the
before, yeah,
first
but not
season?
during.
Okay.
I've been there in the summer, when it was the summer, in the northern hemisphere and winter, but I haven't been there during an equinox like I'm going to be.
Okay, well, it's definitely a time of transition, right? We're coming
Mm-hmm.
out of winter, and springtime is, like we think Easter time, like little like tulips and everything burgeoning and growing and coming out of the soil. And to some extent, we will have a little bit of that energy, astrologically speaking, mostly from all of that, still that Capricorn, Saturnian
Mm-hmm.
energy. But during the springtime, we're going to actually have Saturn moving out of Capricorn and into Aquarius.
Massive.
So that's pretty massive for springtime. And when we think about Capricorn, I mean, everyone, I'm pretty sure it's very rare that I would be speaking to anyone that would not have said something about, oh my gosh, things have been intense and either hard or whatever it is, because we've had such a huge stellium and cluster of planets in Capricorn up until
Right.
now, that it's like that compression. It's
Mm-hmm.
that like pressure, that Saturnian like structure, walls coming collapsing down on us over and over. And then at some point, I think it's March 21st, 22nd, when literally right after the spring equinox is when Saturn shifts right into an air sign, Aquarius.
Well, it's also good to notice because I was aware too that there's retrogrades where it's going to be going back and forth too
Yeah.
between Aquarius and Capricorn.
Yes. So it's definitely going to be a turning point around spring. Not only is the sun, that's when the sun enters Aries. So there's this moving away from the Pisces energy, which we're feeling it right now with Mercury retrograding in Pisces. So there's a lot of this emotional depth of going inward. We're still in that darkness period of winter. And as soon as slowly the sun moves into Aries, and then right around the corner is Saturn coming out of Capricorn and moving into Aquarius, things are lighten things up a little bit, but it's how would I say, what would be an analogy? I don't know. It's because when Saturn is at 29 degrees of Capricorn right before spring equinox, it is tight. Like it's a critical degree. Every time we have either a 0 degree or a 29 degrees, those energies are about to, like, they're screaming at you, like, pay attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an opportunity for you to, finish up something, whatever that is, whether it is something that requires your full attention, to be responsible, to be accountable, to be disciplined, to be structured. Like, that is that last degree before Saturn comes out. And also, like, timing is so everything for Saturn, especially in Capricorn. So it's not about over analyzing things, but really get clear on, okay, these are the things that I've been committed to. Like, I know for you, you're working on a big project that you're so committed to. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're going and just putting your head down, and this is it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what those days, those critical days of Saturn in Capricorn is asking us to do. So don't avoid it. The invitation is, of course, you can avoid it and resist it, because Saturn can also be resistance. But just notice when we resist what exactly persists for us that's causing so much hardship. And I'm using all these words because these words are deeply connected to Saturn and Capricorn. And then the moment that Saturn enters Aquarius, there is a newness. So there's that valve that gets released, and Aquarius moves away from, it moves into the mass, the public, the group, the community, the tribe, the friendships, the people.
So Aquarius.
It's very Aquarius energy, right? So now like the demand and the focus is slowly shifting away from the Capricorn energy that tends to be about the individual goal, the individual accomplishment. Nothing wrong with that, but there's a complete shift of focus. So perhaps, you know, your project that you're working on is, it's your work, but there is a purpose that's greater than yourself, right? So there is something that you are creating, working on, that has an effect and impact that is not just for you alone, but for a much, much larger community, global, you know, impact.
Well, I definitely think that's so much of the energy that's going on collectively right now that we're really seeing is like, there's no more time for playing small. Where can we check our ego? And where can we understand that if we're choosing, especially if we're choosing to be an entrepreneur, that there's integrity behind what we're doing and that there's a deeper meaning and purpose than just making a shit ton of money.
Yeah. And a lot of the Aquarius energy is very much social activism, social movement, social change.
The rebellion.
It is all of that. Now, it is it's Saturn, right? Even though it's Aquarius, it wants to break free from the tradition. However, it is still in a planet. It's being expressed through a planet that is very traditional. So what this means is that there is a restructuring. It's not just full-on anarchy. It is a very intentional movement that is going somewhere, not just, hey, let's drop a coup and then just go wild.
Right.
It's not a riot.
I call it the sacred disruptors. You know, it's there's a disruption that's happening that is sacred. Like there's actually intention, and those are the people that I choose to support and help guide are those sacred disruptors, because we still have to make sure the intention is pure and the intention is for evolution, and an evolution that's actually in alignment with truth and love.
Yes. So, you know, thank God that Neptune is still in Pisces in some ways, right? Like it still is supporting that compassion or like that healing. There's still pain, but then if we're very connected to that oneness and the ability to heal collectively, then we can take action and create a movement that works together with all these outer planets. It becomes dangerous when we activate these energies if it was more like violent or disruptive in a very like in a negative way. So
yes, it's like the hurt people. If you're doing it out of like revenge or like resentment, these like denser energies, there's definitely I feel that the repercussions of it. And that's the invitation for us to do, like with a Mercury Retrograde, perfect time for us to recognize that, do that deep internal work, and start to rewrite those stories.
Yeah. Also, so Saturn is moving into Aquarius March 21st, 22nd, depending on what part of the world you are. And it does move back to Capricorn, I believe, in, where did I write it?
During the retrograde, because it's going back. So even before the dates, I want to dive deeper into that, because what, like, you know, it's going back and forth. Like, what are you seeing with that? Of like, retrograde, like, I can often be seen inside the same sign, but the fact that this retrograde is going back and forth in the summer, between Aquarius and Capricorn.
Yeah. So it goes retrograde. Saturn goes retrograde on May 10th, around like Mother's Day. It's still going to be in Aquarius, but it moves into Capricorn on July 1st, just before 4th of July. So it's, you know, it's almost like, okay, we have a little bit of, we get a taste, we dip our feet in, be able to see how collectively as a group can we connect with social change or movement, try it out, whatever it is that you're up to, you know, create in the world. Then the retrograde allows us to again slow down the pace, because it could culminate to too many chefs in the kitchen. And then it will come a time where we're going to be like, okay, whoa, let's slow down. There's too many ideas. And that's the thing with Aquarius, is that everyone, if people are passionate about a cause, or, you know, some sort of activism or change that they're all wanting to be contributing, then the noise gets louder. And then even though everyone might want, quote unquote, equality and everyone getting along, the way that we go about it will be different based on, you know, different people. So we're still individuals, but sometimes it's not just one voice. It's not the same as Pisces. Pisces tend to be, okay, let's all agree on moving in towards one common voice. Aquarius, not so much. It's more about, okay, we all agree that we need social change, but then you might have a different way of approaching it. I would have a different way of approaching it. So it comes a point where Saturn retrogrades allows us to just take a break and be able to either recapture what are all the different ideas, and then just have an opportunity to step back, right? Aquarius is about detachment, ability to be objective. And so, because Aquarius has a bad rep of being like cold-hearted and being super detached, but at the same time, once they're super passionate about a cause, like there's no stopping them, right? Totally. So there's that, like, it's like that anarchist, like, oh, I'm going to do whatever it's going to take to like destroy and change the status quo. Well, you know, there are certain limitations and boundaries and laws and humanitarian like concepts to uphold. So during that retrograde, it moves back into Capricorn. So it's kind of like revisiting. Capricorn is the establishment of some rules. So it's like it's like the father figure. It's like the father says, you know, I'm imposing, you live under my roof, so these are my rules and live by them, right? So it's kind of revisiting what may be, how can we, it's like I heard someone say, how can we think outside the box but within my circle? So yes, you can think, you know, to create a social change and have all these amazing ideas, but if it's within the circle, within certain boundaries of the law, not that we're breaking the law, we can try to advocate for policy change, of course, but under the Constitution, right? For example. So it's not to violate the Constitution, it is still working within the Constitution. But yeah, so
I
that's kind of
love that you have the law background with this too, to bring it in a way, because I think what I'm hearing too, like around this time of the Saturn retrograde, will be a big point when a lot of the primary season is done.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I love the fact that it's an electional year. I mean, I don't think that none of this is random.
yeah,
So I'm
totally.
just really excited.
Yeah, 2020, with this 2020 crystal vision, during a time where there's like
Mm-hmm.
new fresh energy coming through, and like people
Mm-hmm.
who were never really part of the political process are now being aware, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, because I haven't been involved, like this is why it's part of like the clusterfuck of what's been going down.
Yep.
So I mean, that's why I've been stepping in more to speak up on it, because I see like the inner, I had a download today, while the inner creates the outer can influence the inner.
Yep, absolutely.
And so with the outer influencing the inner, if we as a collective on the outside come together and be part of the revolution, the inner circle cannot ignore that. And I think that's why it's so important for us to come together. And like the fact that Saturn's going to be in Aquarius during the election, I think is incredible.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. I'm like, thank God. Thank God.
Yeah, but it's good to know this awareness, or to have this education, to not lose faith, and with that,
Yep. And
to take action. We have to take action, and if you have that awareness, what are you going to do about it?
yeah, and be inspired, right? And sometimes we might not be naturally part of this dialogue, but because there's so much buzz around, it's great that we can be actively involved and participating and bringing other people along, and that's a very Aquarius energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just think, like, Saturn's so much of that teacher. And I think us stepping up and us doing the work, we're teaching even the next generation on the importance of involvement and being involved. I always like to think that, like, we're the generation, a lot of us have had that stellium in like and I have a Capricorn stellium. So even having that Neptune Uranus conjunction, that period of people, we're the generation that is like a gatekeeper and a bridge between one millennia and another. So we're the last to really remember what the Piscean age was, and then we are the ones setting precedent for the Aquarian age.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. I mean, just look at all the work that you guys used your voice very well.
Yeah. And I own that. I step into that. I respect that. And I also see that it's like a non-negotiable, because the thing that we have to remember is that if we have a responsibility in this, like a collective right now. And I see how the stars are aligned to help us take action right now.
Yeah.
And when you're talking back and forth about the Saturn retrograde and how, we have to still like honor, there's boundaries. We still have to honor these boundaries, but do it with this strategy that is pure and focused and centered on love. And like I said, in evolution, I think that is a big thing we all really need to understand right now.
Yeah, and Aquarius energy and also Uranus. Well, so when Saturn is in Aquarius, the ruling planet of Aquarius is Uranus. And so looking at what Uranus is doing will also inform us of that Saturn. The Saturn activity is very influenced by the Uranus energy. So Uranus is in Taurus, which is all about our values. What is our value system? So shifting, and Taurus is all about the material world, not necessarily just like in luxury, it could very well be, but because it's Uranus and Taurus, it's like the breaking away from the traditional material goods.
Yeah.
It is now shifting a lot into the alternative way of generating income, making money, and what do we spend our money on.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. So there's a lot on around the upcycling, the recycling, the buying things for good, for social change, right? So there is that movement already. It's Mother Nature connecting back to buying things that is good for Mother Nature. So there's all of this change that's happening economically in our country and also globally. And
yeah, think of Bitcoin, think of these alternative these alternative forms of what we're talking about, because I think it's just a massive evolution of consumerism that's really happening right now.
Completely. And it's a reflection of what is actually important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we consume and the way that companies market their products speaks to this new generation. Of course, there's still like the old generation too, but you know, the way that we do ride share, the way that we do a lot of things that are definitely more communal.
I definitely think I'm a firm believer that the future of business success has to be, it's a non-negotiable. It has to have a philanthropic
component
ethos to it. Because if not, then it's a lot of greed. And what are you actually doing to give back to the bigger picture? What are you actually doing to help be part of this evolutionary shift for humanity more than just your pocketbook?
Yeah. Also, speaking of big businesses or businesses in general, well, there's 3 major conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto, and it's happening. I wrote it on my spreadsheet. Sorry, I just, that's how I can keep track of all of it, because otherwise it's just way too many things to remember. But can you see me?
Yeah.
So the first conjunction is actually happening April 4th, of Jupiter and Pluto conjuncting each other in Cap. And that's a lot about big businesses, right? Because Capricorn is all about businesses, but then Jupiter always magnifies. And then Pluto, it's power, it's transformation, it's shadow work. So they're both in Capricorn, it's a lot of like the big businesses will be either scrutinized or, you know, and also at the same time, I also come to learn and really acknowledge and recognize that if we do want big change to happen, we do still need money. So I really see the bridging between small and medium-sized businesses working with big, large businesses, because they're the one who have a lot of the money and the resources to help smaller businesses grow in a way that really can benefit people at large. So it's not about crushing the big businesses, but allowing the big businesses to also help the smaller businesses to rise and to be able to compete in a healthy economy. And you know, and also support the big businesses to continue having and implementing sustainable business practices, and also, you know, be a big contributor for conscious consumerism and education. And you know, so
I believe in capitalism. I just believe in conscious capitalism.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the evolution is happening. Like you're
Yep.
seeing more and more big companies that are like buying like ideas or startups, but there has to still be that conscious component inside the conscious capitalism, because like you said, like we need money to pay for things. Like that's why I'm still pro capitalism, but in a way that's conscious.
Yep.
So that we have like big shit to do here. And
Yeah.
like you said, we need money. So to be able to have this conscious capitalism is to think, again, create ethos and principles around the evolution while honoring money. And, you know, if you're donating like a to nonprofits or the support of nonprofits, I'm for it, you know, as long as the intention is not to be more greedy, but the intention is to actually be of service.
Yep.
And I think that's a huge part of the Uranus and Taurus kind of thing that we're also recognizing is, and people are waking up more and more. So we have a lot of power with our money and how we choose to spend it.
Yeah. Yeah. And with this Uranus and Taurus that's going to continue for another 6 years is, you know, a huge growth in the green energy, all of that
Green New
stuff.
Deal. I see the Green New Deal really taking off.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
for jobs, for the evolution of this planet. And we need to bring more of that awareness and really speak up on these issues. I think companies that are supporting a lot more of like ethical packaging or things like that. I think those are non-negotiables that I think this Saturn retrograde is also going to help us really see if we're restructuring this sense with our business. I think that's going to be a huge part of it, is like more and more people are craving more ethical practices throughout, from like purchasing to delivery.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. It's so funny because I know I'm just kind of shifting topics, but because I live in a condo and there's only 22 units, it's a smaller building. I've noticed, and I've lived here for 11 years, and I've noticed how much, you know, I love Amazon, but then Amazon is like this big business now, is that everyone in my building is all on Amazon Prime. And I can tell because our recycling bins are
all boxes.
constantly, filled with boxes. And it's just like over the top. And I'm like, wow, we are definitely consuming a lot. Like we're buying everything. Everyone is buying everything off of Amazon because of all the boxes. And
well, now you can reach out to them and you can and to say like to minimize packaging too. So I know there's I've seen that go around on Facebook lately, and I did it myself to like minimize the amount of plastic. But I just pray that someone, like, you know, that they would be smart enough. And one of my friends works at Amazon, so I want to be like, hey, we need to sit and have a talk. But like, imagine if you had like a drop-off center where we can recycle these boxes.
Yeah. I also buy imperfect produce, and I love them. But now they have a where you can just fold the boxes, and when they pick up, they'll pick up the old one.
Wow. See, yeah, those are the types of businesses I think people need to start supporting, because like I said, the outer can influence the inner. So if more and more people on the outer are actively doing this, because they've already done it within their own lives, that's where these companies is going to become a non-negotiable. Like you're seeing more people create like refillable products, things like that. So I think this is just part of the baby steps, but it's still like, oh God, when are we going to get our shit together?
I know. So that's why we need leaders out there to be willing and have the courage to try something out. And entrepreneurship is definitely growing. Again, this is just indicator, reflection of the type of like freedom and the knowing that we have the power to create whatever we want for the betterment of our society or of our lives. And yeah, entrepreneurship.
Do you feel like that's part of the Aquarian age energy as well, in terms of like rebelling against like the patriarchal system that was once the, you know, the Piscean age way of being?
Yeah, for sure. I think I don't think that companies are gone and big governments are not gone. I mean, if anything, I feel like more and more businesses have their hands much deeper in government work. That's kind of also interesting to see the evolution of seeing business people running and being in the government. I don't know how I feel about, I mean, I haven't thought it through yet. There's a part of me that really appreciate it, but then there's also a part of me that goes, well, that's not government. That becomes a business. Like now, suddenly the country's going to be a business.
Yeah, where's democracy?
Yeah, so that part, gotta still think through that part.
Yeah, well, I think it's been a huge part of the topic since like Mike Bloomberg has bought his way into this election without even being on a ballot yet, and big companies like that.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. So,
and I think a huge part, that's a huge part of why Trump needed to become the president, was to bring that awareness of like, this shit is not the way it's supposed to be. You know, like we've just like everyone was asleep, and then this happened, and that was the wake up call.
Yep.
And I think that was part of that Saturn Capricorn energy too.
Yep, absolutely. Like, and also the Cancer Capricorn lunar nodes, all of this energy is all conducive to traditions. It's about looking at what do we need to feel safe and secure, and what do we need what type of structures do we actually really need, or what was lacking. So be able to see that contrast is very much, you know, in the nodes as well, because, you know, the United States is a Cancer country. Like it's ruled by Cancer, right? So it's a very Cancerian country. So when the nodes went into Cancer Capricorn, a lot of that stuff, a lot of inside the home is changing. And another thing spring-wise that's going to shift is May 4th is when the North Node is moving out of Cancer and into Gemini. So all of this family dynamic and, you know, like this energy of home, mom, dad, whatever, home, family, business, out in the world, definitely shifting to Gemini Sagittarius energy. So a little bit of a lighten things up. Things are definitely lighten up. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, because I just feel like the past couple years I feel like it really really kicked off with the eclipse of 2017. There was a lot of infiltration and a lot of it was just a lot of really mucky energy where a lot of people were stuck in old timelines and really trapped energetically. I've seen that. I've talked about it with a lot of my friends, and there's just been a huge wake-up call for us to actually, like, we had to go through a lot of that muckiness and that gunk. I saw it as an opportunity for us to reclaim our sovereignty. Like, we went through that for us to reclaim our power, because those stories have been ruling subconsciously, genetically, ancestrally for so long. And like, I fully believe that we're the dark night of the soul generation, that the millennium, because we're the ones, a lot of us were immigrants or children of immigrants. Like, it's a lot of us that we're still really working through a lot of these stories and conditionings and beliefs, you know, and what's actually our truth, or what, when you're talking about that tradition.
Yeah. Well, that during that time, 2017, Saturn was in Sagittarius, and that was when it started dabbling into Capricorn. So you're right about what do we believe to be true, because that's a very Sagittarius concept. And then it gets anchored into family and work dynamic with Capricorn. And then we went even deeper into ancestral lineage and ancestral
healing
traumas with the Capricorn Cancer polarity. So
Cancer was the north node, or was it the south?
North node. And that's why with all of the Capricorn energy with the south node in Capricorn, that's why it's so heavy. It would have been different if the north node was Capricorn, right? It would be a lot more uplifting, and then there would be more.
So explain with them what the difference is between the nodes, because a lot of people don't understand the nodes as much as they do like the sun, moon, or rising.
Sure. So the lunar nodes are composed of the north node and the south node. So in Indian Vedic astrology, they call it, the head of the dragon and the tail of the dragon. So the head is obviously the north node, south node is the tail. And the north node, so the nodes are, so the word nodes means an intersection. So it's not a body, it's not a planetary body. It's the elliptical intersection of the moon trajectory, orbit, with I think the Earth's orbit around the sun, something like that. I can never get it right, but it's a intersection of two planetary, orbits. And it's mostly it's like the moon orbit around the sun, around the Earth. So the south node brings in past life energy, old energy. North node is like the North Star, and it's an invitation for us to move away from old energy and move towards new energy. So north node, so the nodes move opposite, like
they're balanced. It's the
they're
polarity.
always opposite. Yes. Yeah, they're always 180 degrees from each other. But they move the opposite direction than the astrological signs. So that's why we go from Cancer to Gemini. So it goes backward, and then after Gemini it goes to Taurus.
Which is kind of like the ages, because we went from Pisces to Aquarius.
Yes. So now, so we're moving away from Cancer, right? Like North Node in Cancer was an invitation for us to start feeling into what it is that we need to feel safe. How do we connect to our emotions to experience truly vulnerability instead of fear? Typically, like a Capricorn energy, if it's maladaptive, it can be very highly pessimistic. So it's about moving away from skepticism and pessimism, and the invitation of deep connection, so that when we connect, we can start understanding each other and be able to let our guards down, because Cancer is that crab that hides in the shell if it doesn't feel that they're in a familiar environment. So the North Node in Cancer has been, especially for anyone who is a Cancer, that has a Cancer moon, Cancer rising, or that has even a North Node in Cancer. These are people around the age of 36, 37, 38-ish, depending on the degree of your North Node. But everybody's born with a North Node, so your North Node in your natal chart, it kind of speaks into how do you get to operate from, so that you can experience your soul feeling fulfilled and growing from that place, as opposed to operating from your South Node. It's not about abandoning your South Node, it's about understanding what are the things that you came into this lifetime having experienced already, and to take that and bring it along with you so that you can activate your north node and live and operate from that north node. It's not easy. That's why there's a lot of people that rather sit in the comfort of their south node. And I call the south node our couch potato behavior pattern, because it's just easy, been there, done that. It's just very comfortable. But to actually get out of your couch and then see the other side of the north node and live in that place, it's also extremely it's extremely uncomfortable, because it's new. It's like, how do you even do that? So imagine someone that has a south node in Capricorn that's constantly about business. Hey, what's the goal? How do I do this? Like, it's everything is task oriented, goal oriented, achievement oriented. Okay, I want to get this degree, I want to get this certification, I want to get this promotion all the time. At some point, you're gonna hit a wall, and you're gonna want to start exploring, wait a minute, it's not about the achievement. It's about like how I'm connecting with my coworkers, with the people in my life, with my family. That how do we shift into be able to be willing to be wounded, to be able to be seen and heard and felt. So
I think that woundedness that we experience too, it cultivates compassion, yes. Which I think is what so much of these times are really calling for, is how can we be more compassionate? So there's no accident why we've endured what we have. And through that, this is how we can start to infuse more peace, because there's a better understanding of one another.
Yeah. So that's really what we've been through, right? And the lunar node stays with us for about 18 months, roughly a year and a half to 2 years. So, we're about to move out of that and into more Gemini energy, more about talking it out, like communicating, exchanging. There's a different dynamic. But the pain is moving away from the South Node in Sag. South Node in Sag is all about, oh, I already know it. Like I can judge. I can sit out on the top of a mountain and judge everybody else and say, oh, that's right, that's wrong, that's not good, that's right, that's good, that's bad. And it's not about, that is not the dialogue that will create advancement and evolution and growth, because it just gets us stuck in the mud of, yeah, it's not my problem, it's your problem. And me arguing with you because I know I'm right, but rather go, wait a minute, this is your view. I don't necessarily agree with it, but let me ask and learn more.
I think when opportunities like that come to, it's a really, really good time to look at your subconscious mind and to see if like that difference of opinion, if it's triggering you, or like you're feeling rejected or unworthy, or all these really deep core wounds. Those are opportunities for these to be addressed and healed. And I think that's the other thing we have to start seeing as we become more aware of, like, well, this is triggering something. Where did I first have this pain? And I think that's a lot of what we've been feeling during these times. It's like really taking radical responsibility for our emotions, like you said, with the Cancer, with the North Node, and to see like how our emotions have been really ruling the show and running the show.
Yeah. It's learning what our emotions are, where they're coming from, and the results that it creates when we operate from that emotional state. Like, it's not the emotion that's bad, it's the emotion that's causing something that is not what you want in your life.
Definitely.
So I definitely, and I totally encourage people to be in their emotions as long as they're aware of what triggered that emotion, and to be willing to look at that emotion and how that impacts your relationships and what you create in your world, in your life.
Right, because that subconscious, it's oftentimes from childhood. And that's why, again, like a Mercury retrograde type of season is a great way to start looking at that, to begin to rewrite how you communicate, how you speak, how you live.
Yeah.
Your radiance and your essence is a communicative experience in itself.
Yes. And the power of listening is very much in the North Node in Gemini. So the invitation, whatever's going to happen and unfold this spring, moving forward into the summer and into the fall of, the elections, it's a lot of listening and asking questions. And if we really look at what we do in our life, what we do is in perfect alignment with what we believe to be true. So if we consistently take certain actions that doesn't move us clearly in that direction, let's look at what do we believe to be true, such that our actions is telling us that that's what you assume to be true, what you believe to be true. And if your belief is being questioned, tested, challenged, then it creates breakdown. Like people freak out, like people get angry, people get violent, people get offended. It's not what you did, but really the belief that's behind the action. So the willingness to even, and also challenging our personal belief system, it's massive, right? It creates very passionate conversation and dialogues. So we've got to be very highly conscious of where is this dialogue coming from.
Yes, nailed it.
So there's more different layers to peel off as we move into spring and summer, for sure.
Yeah, this is a way of us to step into our power, but not through but through power with like a genuine, authentic, pure alignment. I think it's like really stepping into that aligned power and that aligned action.
Yeah, I know it's much simpler for us to talk about it. I totally agree. Yeah. And I'm sure some people are like, well, where do I start? And I think it's also in the Gemini Sag polarity. I think what would be powerful is that people start learning to take in feedback and learning
that's a huge check in with your ego.
Yes, it's a huge check. And also that we're not taking the feedback personally. And it's very much like I've been talking a lot about the book, The Four Agreements, from Miguel Ruiz, is that, one of the agreements is don't take things personally. And also not assume, because when we assume, it's because we operate from like a preconceived notion of what is true and it's fixed, as opposed to, hey, why would you say, like, why did you say that? Because that made me feel blah, blah, blah this way. So how can we change things up? And that's a very highly conscious level of like talking, but
eventually we're increasing with those sensitivities. And I think the more that we give ourselves permission to love ourselves and to honor ourselves and to respect ourselves and our boundaries, which are things that we've really had to teach ourselves because these were things that were not taught, I think that's going to also create a ripple effect to our reality and the world and humanity at large. Yeah,
absolutely. Especially with the Chiron in Aries for like a whole year now. It continues to be in there. So absolutely the discovery of the wound of who am I? Really to come to acknowledging I am who I am as I am, not who other people expect me to be that. And that's not unique to spring, but certainly it continues, right? So
Yeah.
especially we're coming up on Aries season during springtime. So the sun moving into Aries will come to a conjunction really close to Chiron in Aries for at least a whole week, at least the first week of Aries of spring. So being in our own little cocoon of asking, well, who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Because Aries is, it's like the soldier that has trained to go to battle because that's just who they are. And but for us is, well, who am I, such that the things that I'm creating every day, is that truly me? Or am I doing it because I've been told? Or am I doing this because, well, that's kind of what I feel that pressure, but where was that pressure come from? I don't know, right? So it's the awareness of self.
You nailed it. Yeah. And I just think it's going to be a really powerful time with this 2020 crystal vision and all of these like very, very interesting transitions and aspects and, you know, evolutionary change. This is what it's kind of really, it's brought us to this moment without a doubt. Perfect
Mm-hmm.
alignment.
Yeah. And, you know, also with the Mars on the South Node, there's a lot of emptying out of old stuff. So this is prime time, springtime, literally spring cleaning came a little bit early. And as we enter spring, it will continue, Mars being in Capricorn alongside the Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. So there's a lot of taking action. It will come sometimes where there's going to be some aggressiveness because Mars is very masculine energy, and connecting to Jupiter, that's going to magnify that aggression or that
Action.
directness and that
Mm-hmm.
action. So, you know, yes, once you're clear on your vision and you are committed, and that's the beauty of Saturn, is that it is commitment, then go for it. But then also be mindful and thank God for this Uranus, not Uranus, but the Aquarius, Saturn moving into Aquarius, that will at some point balance out, okay, is this for the good of the of the mass, of the public?
Yeah. I think it's a very wild time right now. And to Aquarian age, it's a lot about community. And I think as we continue to step into this, it's important to reach out, to ask for that help, to listen, to connect with people who've gone through where you've once been. I think that's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
what we also need to really implement right now.
Yeah. And something else is coming up for me that I really think that it's so important. And I really wanted to just speak that into the universe because I really want this to be in existence, is that one thing about Aquarius energy is that because it is a representation of the mass, of the community, and of friendship. And oftentimes when you think about friendship is because we come together because we have shared commonalities that brought us together. It's beautiful because you can find your tribe and connect with people of like-minded people, because then you don't feel so much like an outsider or an outcast. However, the danger is at some point there's a fine line between finding my own people to groupthink. So when we get to groupthink, is everybody thinks the same thing, and then we're just all like sheeps, and
Mm-hmm.
we just kind of move like sheeps. So we've just got to be, and I'm in the Gemini North Node can help with the curiosity of starting to ask question and having dialogues instead of just accepting everything to be just the truth. And oh, well, because we've done this and because this is what everyone thinks, and I'm just going to go along with it.
Yeah, I see it as a time to really step into your sovereignty and to be aware. I think that like being a Gemini here, like myself, I can definitely see, I can have one foot understanding collectively and then one foot being introverted and extroverted. And from that, I very see a lot of hawk energy with the air sign of being more observant of that and then paving my own path and speaking that truth unapologetically. I think it's a very rebellious, like we're chiseling away, you know, from a lot of, like you said, the group thing, what everyone else is telling you what needs to be to find that diamond that is us. And that's what I feel a lot with Gemini.
Yeah. So I think overall, both Aries, Taurus, and Geminis, all these spring babies, you guys are all coming up on a lot of major shift and change, all in different ways, right? The Aries is coming up against Chiron in Aries, and then all my Taurus people are like coming up on Uranus in Taurus. So there's a lot of reinvention, like all the Taurus people going through some
I was hearing like redeveloping.
Yeah, reinventing itself, redefining itself. So that is changing. And then Gemini people, you guys gonna have North Node in Gemini coming up by the time it's your birthday. So for sure.
Hallelujah.
Spring babies.
Oh yeah, because especially like my my Venus and my Mars are Cancer, and my Chiron's conjunct my Venus. So it's been a pretty gnarly ride for me the past couple of years, just like really going through, and you're talking about that North Node in Cancer and my Saturn return. It was a really, really challenging, and they're opposing of each other too. They're pretty much right across from each other too. So yeah, I'm definitely stepping more into that and seeing that. And I just think, I don't know, I feel like this spring, I'll be in fall for a little bit, but, and even the fall, if you're listening in the Southern Hemisphere, like fall season is a lot of leaves falling as well. So we have to understand that while it's spring cleaning, it's also the purging of fall in that sense as well.
Yeah, fall has such a different energy, and yeah, things are dying off.
But it's also harvest. I think like all the hard
harvest.
Yeah, all the hard work is starting to come through.
Yeah, to come through. There's still, because of so many planetary shifts, for people living in the fall season, I think there's a culmination, a harvesting, but then there's going to be a period of sifting through, right? Like you have all these leaves, and then now you want to pick some of these beautiful leaves that you want to keep.
I think that's part of the inspired action though too, is like really reassessing and like working through and seeing through, and from that space, like what is actually in alignment with the vision that I have coming through and the drive that I have to be that revolutionary change in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And after Mars is leaving Capricorn, it is moving into Aquarius for the other half of spring. So Mars in Aquarius is very calculated action, objective action, action for the goodness of people.
I love that. It's like the second half. It's like, especially because summer season too, it can be a little more play. So if you have that action and you set up your systems and your flow, then you can have the springtime. I mean, the summertime to really play and enjoy, because you've done a lot of the hard work during that time. So
yeah. Oh, and Venus is going retrograde during springtime. So that's, when is Venus moving into retrograde? Venus is going retrograde May 12th.
So May 10th, May 12th, that whole pocket right there is going to be a big big
Yeah.
shifts.
Yeah. And Venus is retrograding for usually 40 days. So until
So a 6-week period, which
June.
is a great time for you all to do a 40-day sadhana during that time. Because if you do something every day for 40 days, you can start to shift your subconscious. So I would really consider you all to do a 40-day sadhana during that time. And if you all want to do one together, we can totally do that too.
Yeah, and Venus is retrograding in Gemini.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of shifts coming through. And again, I think the big thing is knowing that it can be really intense on our nervous system because there's a lot of fear and a lot of trusting, but we have to learn to trust ourselves first. And so that's why the more we do this deep inner work, the more we heal, the more we honor our boundaries and learn to say no and to speak and stand our truth. I think that's what a lot of what's being brought to the table right now.
Yeah, and I think that the willingness to talk and share is where the healing and the awareness and the learning comes from. And having the Venus retrograding in Gemini can really support that.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing because all of this is perfectly aligned with how I set up Thrive. So everyone right now is that during that time is when they're going to be really stepping into their journey and their story, and how do we create these offerings and these programs that support the experience and the wisdom that you've learned over these times. And that's a huge thing that I teach, is the importance of aligning your business with this planetary, these shifts and this energy, so that we can use it as a tool and work with us, not against us. And again, it's a time for us to reclaim our power and to understand that it affects all of us universally. Different ways, yes, because of where it is compared to our own natal, but it's still an energy that is impacting all of us.
Yeah, it's a shared energy. You know, it's not like, well, you know, you're going through your stuff and it doesn't affect me because I'm here doing my thing. There is, because it's a ripple. It's kind of like how we're all connected by a 6-degree separation. We're not too far off of each other, you know?
Definitely. So are there any other things we should be aware of with this spring, or have we nailed?
Yeah, the eclipse season doesn't really start until, I mean, summer. I mean, it's before summer. It's June. We're going to have a lunar eclipse in early June. So, you know, right into Gemini season. So it's right before summer. We have a lunar eclipse in Sag. So for those who are, you know, Sagittarius and Gemini, there's an energetic shift. Again, more energetic shift in early June. But there's not a lot of stuff happening in April. May are the ones that I talked about. And early June is that lunar eclipse. And then just short of the summer solstice, I mean, summer, you're going to have probably another astrologer coming in to talk about summer. But I'm not going to say anything so that everybody gets
the suspense is killing us.
But it's
one season at a time.
Yeah, summer's going to be very massive. Like it's almost like it's going to come in with this big explosion.
Yeah, so I just think right now, to prepare for that, just continue to honor yourself, continue to do the deep internal work, and continue to work with your soul squad, connect with your community, and remember that we don't have to do this alone. I think that's the big thing we have to understand. This is not about, the lone wolf days are over, and what we've endured, there's a purpose to it. So I just want to wrap up by asking a quick lightning round questions. Thank you for all your knowledge, Mimi. This has been so awesome. I'm so excited you've been sharing all your wisdom and all your juju. But I want to know, what does sovereignty mean to you?
Oh, wow. Ownership.
What would you say was the one book that revolutionized your life?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, but I'm just going to share the latest. Because I've been on a audiobook rampage this whole year, or in last year too. But the latest book that I just finished a few days ago is called Invested by Danielle Town, and also co-authored with her father, Phil Town. It's amazing for those who are at that point in their life to want to have full control of their own finances and learning how to invest without relying on a broker. And so it's like deep education on participating in the economy by knowing how to invest and how to evaluate companies that you actually want to invest in because you feel like they're doing good.
Wow, powerful. Yes, this is how we start to change the dialogue and heal our relationship with money, not just individually, but as a country and as a global economy too. I love that. What would you say to younger Mimi?
What would I say to my younger self? So this is actually, it goes deep. And I wish I had known to not let my mother dictate what I can and can't do and let her stop. I mean, it was me letting myself stop myself. And I wish I just didn't stop myself.
So what would you tell her?
Like, don't stop yourself from getting what you want.
Yes, and here she is doing it now. She's owning that.
Yeah.
And where can we find more of you, learn more about your medicine and your great knowledge?
Yes, you can find me on my website and on Instagram. They're both at Exalted, IGZOLTED.
Amazing. And what last little nugget of wisdom do you want to share with whoever's listening?
I mean, you're so right about acceptance. I through all the coaching that I've done with a lot of my clients, what I've noticed is that it's so difficult for people to accept themselves. And until we can accept who we are, we can't move forward. We're stuck and we're going in circle. So that is the wisdom, is if you're going to work on anything, work on fully accepting yourself the way you are with your own imperfection and embrace them.
I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And everyone, this spring, fall, autumn season, just remember that this is a very powerful time. And this is part of the conscious revolutionary change that we are all partaking in. And it's why we all chose to come here during this wild time in human history. And we're all supported. We can help one another go through this together. And Mimi's here, I'm here. There's so many other people that have your back. And just remember to ask for help and to share what you're going through, and allow yourself to listen for other people too. I think this is how we start to bring in more compassion and more humanity. It starts by first with ourselves, and then our inner circles, and then out into the world. So thank you again, Mimi, for being here. And I'm really excited to see how this whole season really flows and aligns, and just what we do with this power to really be the change we wish to see.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be seeing more of you soon. Take care.